The deafening screech of tires against asphalt shattered the peaceful Tuesday morning silence. Leon Crawford slammed his foot on the brake pedal of his midnight black Lamborghini Huracan, bringing the car to a heart-stopping halt just inches from a garbage truck that had suddenly turned the corner. Son of a... Leon's curse died in his throat as his hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white as fresh snow. At 34, he had survived hostile takeovers, boardroom coups, and even a kidnapping attempt by a disgruntled investor. But nearly becoming roadkill at 7:30 a.m. on a random Tuesday wasn't exactly on his bucket list. The garbage truck driver leaned out his window, shouting something that Leon's ringing ears couldn't quite catch, but the gesture was universally understood. Leon raised his hand in apologetic acknowledgement, his heart still hammering like a jackhammer against his ribs. Still shaking from the adrenaline surge, Leon pulled into the first available parking spot he could find, right in front of a small diner called Sunrise Cafe. The kind of place he would normally drive past without a second glance. But right now, he needed coffee. Strong coffee. Possibly intravenous coffee. The brass bell above the door chimed as he entered, and Leon immediately felt like he'd stepped into a different world. The place was the complete antithesis of his usual environment. Worn leather booths instead of glass conference tables, the smell of bacon and fresh coffee instead of expensive cologne and sanitizer, and not a single smartphone or tablet in sight. "Welcome to Sunrise. Grab any seat that calls to you, honey." The voice came from behind the counter, warm, genuine, with just a hint of amusement that made Leon wonder if she'd witnessed his near-death experience outside. But Leon was too busy juggling his 3 phones to pay attention. His assistant had sent 52 messages, his lawyer 31, and his mother... Well, his mother had sent just 1, but it contained 18 heart emojis and somehow felt more urgent than the $500 million merger waiting for his signature. He slumped into a corner booth, spreading papers across the checkered tablecloth like he was solving a financial puzzle. The Hartwell Industries merger contract lay before him, 3 years of negotiations, 8 months of due diligence, and a fortune in legal fees, all condensed into 289 pages that would transform Crawford Tech into the largest software company on the East Coast. Let me guess, black coffee, no sugar, no cream, and definitely no small talk? A tray appeared on his table with a soft thud. Leon looked up, and for the first time in years, completely forgot what he was doing. The waitress standing before him had honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, striking blue eyes that seemed to hold secrets, and a smile that could make any CEO forget about quarterly earnings. How did you? Leon blinked, genuinely confused. "You're the guy who just performed an impromptu brake test on your very expensive car out there, right?" She nodded toward the window where his Lamborghini sat gleaming in the morning sun. "In my experience, men who almost die before 8 a.m. usually need caffeine more than conversation. I'm Katerina, and I run this 5-star establishment." The sarcasm in her voice was delivered with such perfect timing that Leon found himself smiling despite everything. "Leon Crawford," he managed, still staring at her like she was some kind of optical illusion. "Crawford?" Katerina tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Crawford Tech, right? You're the guy who's been buying up every tech startup in the city like they're trading cards. You know my company?" Leon felt that familiar pang of recognition. People always knew him, but rarely in the way that mattered. "Honey, your company logo is on half the buildings in the tech district. Plus, you made headlines last month when you outbid 3 other companies for that AI startup." Katerina shrugged. "I read the business section while I eat my breakfast." "Sue me." This was new. Leon was used to people knowing him from Forbes covers or gossip columns, but someone who actually followed his business moves? That was refreshing. "Most people don't pay attention to acquisition news," he said, genuinely curious. "Most people don't dream of opening their own tech company someday," Katerina replied, then immediately looked like she wished she hadn't said that. "You want to start a tech company?" Leon leaned forward, intrigued. "Wanted. Past tense." Katerina waved her hand dismissively. "Reality has a way of adjusting dreams to fit bank accounts. But enough about my abandoned aspirations. What's got you looking like you're about to sign your life away? Leon glanced down at the contract, then back at her. Merger. 3 years in the making, should be signing it in. He checked his watch. 2 hours. Should be? Katerina caught the hesitation in his voice. But you're not sure? I'm always sure. Leon said it automatically, but even as the words left his mouth, they felt hollow. Katerina studied his face for a moment, then surprised him by sliding into the booth across from him. Mind if I ask what's making Mr. Always Sure suddenly not so sure? Leon stared at her, this waitress who had just abandoned her other customers to sit with him, and felt something shift in his chest. I don't know. Maybe it's the near-death experience, but something feels off. Off how? Like I'm missing something important. Like there's a piece of the puzzle I haven't seen yet. Leon ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that would have horrified his image consultant. God, I sound paranoid. You sound human, Katerina said simply. When's the last time you trusted your gut over a spreadsheet? The question hit Leon like a physical blow. When was the last time? He couldn't remember. That's what I thought. Katerina nodded. Look, I don't know anything about your business and I'm definitely not qualified to give merger advice, but she hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. My dad always told me that if something feels wrong, it probably is. And right now you look like a man who knows something's wrong but can't figure out what. Leon stared at her, this woman who had known him for all of 10 minutes and somehow seen straight through his carefully constructed facade. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just scared? Then you're scared for a reason, Katerina said. Fear isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the only thing standing between you and a really stupid decision. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the morning light streaming through the window and casting golden highlights in Katerina's hair. Leon found himself studying her face, memorizing the way her eyes crinkled slightly when she smiled, the way she gestured with her hands when she talked. You know, Katerina said finally, I've got about 20 other customers who are probably wondering where their coffee is, but something tells me you needed this conversation more than they need their refills. Thank you, Leon said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in a long time. Don't thank me yet. I haven't even brought you food, Katerina grinned, and trust me, you're going to need carbs for whatever decision you're about to make. As she stood to leave, Leon caught her wrist gently. Katerina? That tech company dream of yours, what was it? She looked surprised by the question. Educational software. I wanted to create programs that would make learning accessible for kids who couldn't afford traditional tutoring. Silly, right? Not silly at all, Leon said quietly. Actually, it sounds like exactly the kind of thing the world needs. Katerina smiled, a real smile this time, not the professional waitress smile she'd been wearing. Well, maybe in another life. As she walked away, Leon looked down at the contract again. But now, instead of seeing dollar signs and market projections, he saw Katerina's face when she talked about her dream. He saw the way her eyes lit up when she mentioned helping kids learn. He saw someone who cared about more than just profit margins. And suddenly, Leon Crawford, the man who had built an empire on calculated risks and cold logic, realized he was about to make the most important decision of his life based on something completely unprecedented, his heart. He picked up his phone and dialed his lawyer. Patterson, it's Leon, about the Hartwell merger. I need you to postpone the signing. What? Leon, we can't postpone. The board is expecting. I don't care what the board is expecting, something's not right and I need more time to figure out what. There was a pause. Leon, are you feeling all right? This isn't like you. Leon looked across the cafe where Katerina was refilling coffee cups and chatting with customers like she'd known them her whole life. No, Patterson. For the first time in years, I'm feeling like myself. As he hung up the phone, Leon realized that sometimes the most important contracts aren't the ones you sign. They're the ones you walk away from. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can find in a small cafe isn't the coffee. It's the person who reminds you that there's more to life than the next deal. Leon's phone buzzed incessantly as he sat in his Lamborghini outside Sunrise Cafe. staring at the building like it held the secrets of the universe. 3 hours had passed since he'd postponed the Hartwell merger, and the business world was having what could only be described as a collective aneurysm. Crawford tech stock drops 12% after mysterious merger delay. Financial Times, Leon Crawford, genius or losing his mind. Forbes, sources say Crawford acting erratically. Wall Street Journal, erratically, Leon muttered, scrolling through the headlines. Right, because trusting my instincts for once in my life is erratic. His phone rang, the 4th time in 10 minutes. This time it was his mother. Leon Michael Crawford, what in God's name is going on? Margaret Crawford's voice could cut glass when she was worried. I've had 3 reporters call me asking if you're having a nervous breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown, Mom, I'm having a breakthrough. Leon watched through the cafe window as Katerina served a family with 2 small children, her face lighting up as she talked to the kids. That's exactly what someone having a breakdown would say. His mother's sigh was audible across the connection. Are you at least somewhere safe? Please tell me you're not making life-altering decisions while skydiving or something equally ridiculous. I'm sitting outside a cafe. A cafe? Leon, you haven't eaten at a cafe since college. You barely ate at cafes in college. Leon found himself smiling. This one's different. Different how? It has character. Character? Margaret's voice rose an octave. Leon, buildings don't have character, people have character. Are you sure you're not? I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine, actually. Leon caught sight of Katerina again, this time helping an elderly man with his walker. I think I might have found something important. More important than a $500 million merger? Maybe. There was a long pause. Okay, that's it. I'm calling Dr. Weinstein. Mom, I don't need a psychiatrist. I need... Leon stopped, watching Katerina laugh at something the old man said. I need to go. Leon Christopher Crawford, don't you dare hang up on me when you're clearly... Love you, Mom. Talk soon. Leon hung up and immediately regretted it. He'd pay for that later. But right now he had more pressing concerns, like figuring out why a waitress he'd known for 3 hours had more influence on his decision-making than his entire board of directors. The cafe door chimed as he entered, and Katerina looked up from wiping down tables. Her face broke into a smile that did dangerous things to his cardiovascular system. Well, look who's back. Let me guess. You came for the world-famous coffee? Actually, I came to ask you something. Leon approached the counter, suddenly feeling like a teenager asking someone to prom. Are you busy tonight? Katerina raised an eyebrow. That depends. Are you asking me out, or are you about to offer me a job as your personal merger advisor? Neither. Both. I don't know. Leon ran his hand through his hair. I just know that you made me think about things differently this morning, and I'd like to continue that conversation. Over dinner, presumably? If you want. Or coffee. Or... I honestly don't know the protocol here. Katerina laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. The protocol for what? For asking out someone who might have just saved my company from making a terrible mistake. Ah. Katerina nodded sagely. That's a very specific protocol. I believe it involves expensive wine and awkward small talk about quarterly earnings. I was thinking more along the lines of, what do you like to do when you're not saving clueless millionaires from themselves? Clueless millionaires? Katerina feigned shock. I would never be so presumptuous. I prefer temporarily directionally challenged entrepreneurs. Leon laughed, feeling lighter than he had in months. So, is that a yes? That depends. Are you going to spend the entire evening checking your phone and muttering about stock prices? I'll leave my phone in the car. All 3 of them? How did you... Leon stopped, remembering the morning's phone juggling act. Yes, all 3 of them. In that case, Katerina untied her apron. I get off at 6. Pick me up at 7? Where do you live? Nice try, but I'm not giving my address to someone I met this morning. I'll meet you at Riverside Park, the fountain. Riverside Park? Leon tried to remember the last time he'd been to a public park. Is that safe? Leon, I'm a waitress, not a mob boss. I think we'll be fine. Katerina shook her head, amused. Besides, if you're planning to murder me, doing it in a public park seems counterproductive. That's a fair point. I'm full of fair points, it's one of my many charms. Katerina grabbed her purse from behind the counter. Oh, and Leon, dress down. If you show up in a three-piece suit, I'm going home. Define dress down. Jeans, t-shirt, clothes that won't make small children point and stare. Leon looked down at his current outfit. Italian leather shoes, tailored pants, silk shirt. I'm not sure I own jeans. Then buy some. There's a department store 2 blocks down. Katerina headed toward the back of the cafe, then paused. And Leon, whatever you're worried about with that merger, trust yourself. You've gotten this far by being smart. Don't stop now. 6 hours later, Leon stood in front of his walk-in closet, holding a pair of jeans like they were an artifact from an alien civilization. The sales clerk at Macy's had been extremely helpful, though she'd looked at him strangely when he'd asked if the jeans came with instructions. His phone, the one he'd forgotten to leave in the car, buzzed with another message from his assistant. Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. They want explanations. Leon stared at the message, then at his reflection in the mirror. The jeans fit better than he'd expected, and the simple gray t-shirt made him look normal. When was the last time he'd looked normal? His doorman, Rodriguez, did a double take when Leon walked through the lobby. Mr. Crawford? Are you going to the gym? I'm going on a date, Rodriguez. A date? Rodriguez's eyes widened. Like with a person? Yes, with a person. What else would it be with? I don't know, sir, When was your last date? Leon thought about it. Christmas party 2 years ago. Sandra from accounting. That wasn't a date, sir. That was a business function where you happened to talk to a woman. What's the difference? Rodriguez looked at him with something approaching pity. Mr. Crawford, with respect, you need all the help you can get. 15 minutes later, Leon stood by the fountain at Riverside Park, checking his watch every 30 seconds. He'd arrived 20 minutes early, partly because he wasn't sure how long it would take to find parking, and partly because he was inexplicably nervous. Leon? He turned to find Katerina approaching, and his brain temporarily short-circuited. Gone was the practical ponytail and work uniform. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and she wore a simple sundress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine. You clean up nice, she said, looking him up and down approvingly. I was half expecting you to show up in a tuxedo. I considered it, Leon admitted, but my doorman talked me out of it. Smart man. So, what's the plan? Please tell me you didn't book us a private table at some restaurant where they charge $50 for a single scallop. Actually, I was hoping you'd have suggestions. I'm not exactly an expert on... Leon gestured vaguely at the park, where families were having picnics and kids were playing frisbee. Normal people activities. Normal people activities? Katerina laughed. You make it sound like we're a different species. Aren't you? Leon, you're overthinking this, come on. Katerina grabbed his hand, and Leon felt a jolt of electricity run up his arm. I'm going to show you how regular people have fun. She led him to a food truck parked near the park entrance, the kind of place Leon would normally walk past without a second glance, but Katerina approached it like she was greeting an old friend. Hey, Carlos, 2 specials, extra salsa. Katerina! The vendor's face lit up. I haven't seen you in weeks. How's the cafe? Busy as always. Carlos, this is Leon. Leon, Carlos makes the best tacos in the city. Leon nodded politely, trying not to think about food safety ratings and health department inspections. Nice to meet you, Carlos. Carlos handed them 2 foil-wrapped tacos and refused Leon's attempt to pay. Any friend of Katerina's eats free. As they found a spot on the grass, Leon unwrapped his taco and stared at it suspiciously. It's not going to bite you, Katerina said, already halfway through hers. When's the last time you ate street food? Leon asked. This morning. When's the last time you ate food that didn't come with a wine pairing? Leon took a bite and his eyes widened. This is actually incredible. I know. Carlos is a genius. He used to be a chef at some fancy place downtown, but he said he was tired of cooking for people who were too busy taking photos of their food to actually taste it. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Leon couldn't remember the last time he'd sat on the ground, let alone enjoyed it. "Can I ask you something?" Katerina said, wiping her hands on a napkin. "Shoot. Why did you really postpone that merger? And don't say it was because of something I said. I'm flattered, but I'm not that influential." Leon was quiet for a long moment. "Because I realized I've been making decisions based on what I thought I should want, not what I actually wanted." "And what do you actually want?" "I don't know yet, but for the first time in years I want to find out." Katerina smiled. "That's brave." "Is it?" "Because it feels terrifying." "Same thing sometimes." They talked until the stars came out, about everything and nothing. Her dreams of changing education, his fear of becoming his father, the way the city looked different when you weren't rushing through it in a sports car. "I should get you home," Leon said finally, though he didn't want the evening to end. "I can take the subway. It's not far." "Absolutely not. I'll drive you." "Leon, I've been taking the subway for years. I'm not going to melt. Humor me." As they walked back to his car, Katerina stopped suddenly. "Leon." "Yeah?" "Whatever you decide about that merger, make sure it's what you want, not what everyone else expects. What if I make the wrong choice? Then you'll make a different choice next time." "That's what normal people do." Leon looked at her. This woman who had somehow become the most important person in his life in the span of a single day, and realized he was already making the right choice. He just wasn't sure he was brave enough to admit it yet. Leon stood outside the Crawford Tech headquarters at 8:30 a.m., staring up at the gleaming glass tower that bore his name in chrome letters. 42 stories of steel and ambition, and for the first time in his life he didn't want to go inside. His phone buzzed with a text from Katerina. "Good luck today. Remember, trust yourself. P.S. I made you coffee. It's waiting at the cafe after your meeting." Leon smiled despite the knot in his stomach. She'd been thinking about him. The realization sent warmth spreading through his chest, temporarily eclipsing his anxiety about facing the board. "Mr. Crawford?" His assistant, Jennifer, appeared at his elbow, slightly out of breath. "The board is already assembled. They've been here since 8. "Of course they have." Leon straightened his tie. Back to the 3-piece suits today. Some battles required armor. "How bad is it?" "On a scale of 1 to 10? 15. Jennifer fell into step beside him as they entered the elevator. "Mr. Hartwell called 3 times. The Wall Street Journal wants a statement. And your mother called to ask if you've come to your senses yet." "Fantastic. Oh, and sir? There are protesters outside the Hartwell building. Something about environmental violations. Might want to add that to your talking points." Leon's hand froze halfway to the elevator button. "Environmental violations? It's probably nothing. You know how these activist groups exaggerate." "Jennifer." Leon's voice was sharp. "What kind of environmental violations?" Jennifer consulted her tablet nervously. "Illegal dumping of chemical waste. But Mr. Crawford, these are just allegations." The elevator doors opened to the 42nd floor, revealing the boardroom through glass walls. 12 of the most powerful people in tech sat around a mahogany table, and every single one of them looked like they wanted Leon's head on a platter. "Sir?" Jennifer touched his arm gently. "They're waiting." Leon took a deep breath, thinking of Katerina's words. "Trust yourself." "Right. Let's get this over with." The moment Leon entered the boardroom, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Robert Steinberg, the board chairman and Leon's former mentor, didn't even look up from his papers. "Leon, please sit down." The formal tone was a bad sign. When Robert called him son and clapped him on the back, Leon knew he was safe. When Robert used his first name with the warmth of a funeral director, Leon was in trouble. "Gentlemen, ladies," Leon nodded to the board as he took his seat at the head of the table. "I know you have questions." "Questions?" Patricia Vance, the CFO, slammed her tablet on the table. "Leon, we have a crisis. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I postponed a merger that I felt needed more review." "You tanked our stock price." Patricia's voice rose. "We've lost $200 million in market cap in 18 hours. That's a temporary fluctuation." "Temporary?" Robert finally looked at him, and Leon felt like a disappointing child again. "Leon, we had agreements, handshake deals. The Hartwell merger was supposed to position us as the dominant force in the industry. And it still can. I just need more time to..." "Time for what?" This from Marcus Webb, the youngest board member and usually Leon's ally. "Leon, what exactly are you reviewing? We spent 8 months in due diligence. We know everything there is to know about Hartwell Industries." Leon thought about the protesters outside Hartwell's building, about environmental violations, about the feeling in his gut that something was fundamentally wrong. "Do we?" Leon asked quietly. The room fell silent. "Do we know everything?" Leon continued, standing up. "Because I'm hearing about environmental violations, federal investigations, chemical dumping." "Where are you hearing this?" Robert's voice was dangerous now. "Does it matter where? The question is why I'm hearing it from outside sources instead of our own due diligence team." Patricia and Robert exchanged a look that Leon didn't like. "Leon," Robert said carefully, "we were aware of some regulatory challenges that Hartwell was facing. But these are minor issues that can be resolved post-merger." "Minor issues?" Leon felt his blood pressure rising. "Robert, are you telling me you knew about potential federal violations and didn't think to mention them?" "We didn't want to complicate what was already a complex negotiation." "Complicate?" Leon's voice echoed off the glass walls. "You mean you didn't want to give me a reason to walk away?" The silence that followed was deafening. "Leon," Patricia said in a voice that could cut steel, "you need to understand something. This isn't just about one merger. We have investors, stakeholders, employees who are depending on this acquisition. You can't just..." "Can't just what? Act like the CEO of my own company? You can't just throw away 3 years of work because you got cold feet." Leon stared at her, then at Robert, then at the rest of the board. These people who had been his advisors, his mentors, his friends, and they had been willing to let him walk into a potential legal and financial nightmare without warning him. "How long have you known?" Leon asked quietly. "Known what?" "About the environmental violations, the federal investigation. How long?" Robert sighed. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. While Leon had been agonizing over market projections and integration plans, his own board had been hiding potential federal crimes from him. "I see." Leon walked to the window, looking down at the city below. Somewhere down there, Katerina was making coffee and serving customers and believing that people could trust each other to do the right thing. "Leon," Robert said, his voice gentler now, "I know this is a shock, but these issues aren't insurmountable. With the right legal team..." "No." "No?" Leon turned back to face the board. "No. We're not moving forward with the merger." The room erupted. "You can't be serious. This is financial suicide." "Leon, think about what you're saying." "I am thinking." Leon's voice cut through the chaos. "For the first time in months, I'm actually thinking instead of just reacting to what everyone else wants me to do." "What everyone else wants?" Patricia stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Leon, we're trying to save your company." "My company was never in danger until you decided to hide federal crimes from me." "They're not crimes, they're violations." "Patricia." Leon's voice was ice cold. "Stop talking." The room fell silent again. "Here's what's going to happen," Leon continued. "We're going to kill the Hartwell merger, permanently. We're going to issue a statement that Crawford Tech has decided to pursue organic growth instead of acquisitions, and we're going to move forward without compromising our ethics or our legal standing." And if the stock price doesn't recover? Robert asked. Then we'll build it back up the right way. Leon, Marcus Webb spoke up. With all due respect, this is career suicide. For all of us. Leon looked around the table one more time, at these people who had been willing to sacrifice his integrity for their profit margins. Then I guess we'll find out what we're really made of, won't we? An hour later, Leon sat in the familiar corner booth at Sunrise Cafe, his head in his hands. The coffee Katerina had promised was waiting for him along with a note. Whatever happened, you did the right thing. I can tell by looking at you. K. That bad, huh? Katerina slid into the seat across from him. I just potentially destroyed my own company to avoid a merger that could have made us billions. Could have, or could have destroyed you completely when those federal investigations went public. Leon looked up sharply. How did you... The news broke 20 minutes ago. Environmental violations, federal grand jury, the works. Katerina showed him her phone. Looks like your instincts were better than you thought. Leon stared at the headlines, feeling simultaneously vindicated and terrified. My board is probably planning a coup as we speak. Your board lied to you, that's not leadership, that's conspiracy. Katerina, you don't understand. I just walked away from $500 million based on a feeling. No, Katerina said firmly. You walked away from $500 million based on your integrity. There's a difference. Leon looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who served coffee for a living and somehow understood business ethics better than his entire board of directors. How do you do that, he asked. Do what? Make everything seem so simple. Because it is simple, Leon. You have two choices. Do what's right, or do what's profitable. Most of the time they're the same thing, but when they're not, Katerina shrugged. You choose who you want to be. Leon reached across the table and took her hand. What if I chose wrong? Then you'll choose differently next time. Katerina squeezed his fingers. But Leon, you didn't choose wrong. And deep down you know that. As if on cue, Leon's phone rang. It was Jennifer. Mr. Crawford, you need to see the news. The Hartwell executives were just arrested by the FBI. Leon met Katerina's eyes across the table and saw something there that made his heart race. Not fear or uncertainty, but absolute confidence in him. Jennifer, Leon said, never breaking eye contact with Katerina. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Sir? But the board wants to meet again. The board can wait. I have more important things to do. More important than... Yes, Leon said, bringing Katerina's hand to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Much more important. For the first time in his adult life, Leon Crawford had his priorities exactly right. 2 weeks after the Hartwell scandal broke, Leon discovered that being vindicated by the FBI was significantly less satisfying than expected when your entire board of directors was plotting your removal. He sat in his office at 2 a.m., surrounded by financial reports and legal documents, trying to figure out how to save his company from the very people who were supposed to help him run it. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd avoided one hostile takeover only to face another from within. His phone buzzed with a text from Katerina. Still awake? I'm closing up the cafe. Coffee withdrawal is no excuse for staying up all night. Leon smiled, despite everything. Over the past 2 weeks, Katerina had become his anchor in the storm. She brought him lunch when he forgot to eat, listened to him vent about board politics, and somehow always knew exactly what to say to keep him grounded. Come over, he texted back. I'll make you dinner. You? Cook? I've seen your idea of food preparation. It involves takeout menus. I've been practicing. This I have to see. Address? Leon hesitated. He'd been to her small apartment above a bookstore, but she'd never been to his penthouse. The wealth gap between them had become an invisible elephant in the room, acknowledged but never discussed. 20 minutes later, Katerina stood in the marble lobby of Leon's building, craning her neck to look at the crystal chandeliers. Jesus, Leon, she breathed, as the elevator whisked them to the top floor. Do you live here, or just visit on weekends? It's home, Leon said, suddenly seeing the space through her eyes. the imported Italian marble, the original Picassos, the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Katerina stepped into the living room and turned in a slow circle. "This is bigger than my entire building." "Katerina, No, it's amazing. It's just..." She walked to the windows, pressing her palms against the glass. "Do you ever feel lonely up here? Like you're floating above everyone else?" The question hit Leon like a physical blow because the answer was yes. Before her, he'd felt exactly like that. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Less so lately." She turned to face him, and something in her expression made his heart race. "Leon, we need to talk." Those 4 words had never led anywhere good in Leon's experience. "About what?" "About us. About what this is." Katerina gestured between them. "Because I need to know if I'm just your charity case or if this is something real." "Charity case?" Leon was genuinely shocked. "Katerina, why would you think..." "Because I'm a waitress, Leon. I serve coffee for a living. You own half the city." She crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "And I know how this looks from the outside." "I don't care how it looks from the outside." "But I do." Katerina's voice was quieter now, vulnerable. "I care because I'm falling for you, and I need to know if you're falling for me or for the idea of me." Leon stared at her, this woman who could see straight through all his defenses, and realized she was terrified. Not of his wealth or his world, but of being seen as an accessory to it. "You want to know what this is?" Leon walked to her, stopping just close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her blue eyes. "This is me realizing that I've spent my entire life building walls to keep people out, and then you walked into that cafe and knocked them all down without even trying." "Leon, this is me lying awake at night not thinking about market projections or board meetings, but about the way you laugh when you think something is really funny. Not the polite laugh, the real one that makes your whole face light up." Katerina's breath caught. "This is me wanting to call you every time something good happens because you're the first person I want to share it with. And when something bad happens, you're the only person who can make it better, just by being there." "You mean that?" "Katerina, I've never meant anything more in my life." Leon reached up to cup her face gently. "You're not my charity case. You're not my phase or my midlife crisis or whatever the gossip columnists want to call it. You're the person who makes me want to be better than I thought I could be." Tears gathered in Katerina's eyes. "I was so scared that this was all just novelty for you. The rich guy slumming it with the working class girl. Is that really what you think of yourself, working class girl?" Leon shook his head. "Katerina, you're brilliant. You see things that I miss, understand people in ways I never could. You probably know more about running a business than half my board does. Now you're just flattering me. I'm serious. The way you handle the cafe, manage your staff, read your customers, that's pure business instinct. You could run any company you wanted." "Speaking of which..." Katerina took a deep breath. "I have something to tell you." Leon's stomach dropped. "What?" "I applied to business school, NYU's MBA program." She spoke quickly, like she was afraid she'd lose her nerve. "I know it's crazy, and the tuition is insane, but I figured if I'm going to dream, I might as well dream big." Leon stared at her, his mind racing. "When?" "I submitted the application yesterday. I probably won't get in, and even if I do, I can't afford it, but you'll get in." Leon's voice was certain. "And you'll be brilliant at it." "Leon, I appreciate the confidence, but..." "No, you don't understand." Leon took her hands. "I want to invest in your education." Katerina's face went very still. "What?" "Not as charity, as an investment, a real one." Leon's words tumbled out in a rush. "Katerina, I've seen your business instincts. I've watched you solve problems that stump people with decades of experience. I want to be your first investor." "Leon, I can't let you pay for..." "Not pay for. Invest in. There's a difference." Leon pulled her over to the couch. "Look, my board is trying to push me out. They think I've lost my mind, and maybe they're right, but not about you. About you, I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have. I don't understand. Start a company, Katerina. That educational software you talked about. Let me be your business partner. Katerina looked at him like he'd suggested they move to Mars. Leon, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything. Leon leaned forward, his excitement building. You said you wanted to create programs to help kids who couldn't afford tutoring. Do you know how huge that market is? How much good we could do? We? If you'll have me. As your partner, not your sugar daddy or your patron or whatever you're worried about. Your actual business partner. Katerina was quiet for a long moment, processing. There's something else, Leon continued. Something I haven't told you. What? I'm probably going to lose Crawford Tech. The board has the votes to remove me as CEO. Katerina's eyes widened. Leon, I'm so sorry. Don't be. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of losing something. Leon smiled. Because I realized that the most important thing I could gain is sitting right here. Which is? A real partner. Someone who challenges me, supports me, makes me better. Someone who sees me as more than just my bank account or my business achievements. Katerina leaned back against the couch cushions. This is insane. The best ideas usually are. Leon, what if it doesn't work? What if we crash and burn both personally and professionally? Then we'll crash and burn together, and then we'll figure out what comes next. Leon moved closer to her. Katerina, I spent so many years being afraid of failing that I forgot how to try for something that really mattered. And I matter? You matter more than anything. Katerina looked at him for a long moment, and Leon held his breath. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Okay, let's be business partners. But I have conditions. Leon grinned. Name them. First, I pay you back every penny you invest, with interest. Deal. Second, we do this right. Legal documents, proper equity splits, all of it. Absolutely. And third, Katerina moved closer to him, close enough that he could feel her breath on his face. If we're going to be business partners, we need to get our personal relationships sorted out first. What did you have in mind? Instead of answering, Katerina closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was nothing like the careful, polite kisses Leon was used to from charity galas and business dinners. This was real, soft and urgent and perfect, tasting like coffee and possibility. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Katerina smiled. Was that professional enough for you, Mr. Crawford? Highly unprofessional, Ms. Chen. We're going to have to work on that. I suppose we'll need a lot of practice. Years of practice, Leon agreed, pulling her closer. Maybe decades. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled below them, but for the first time in his life, Leon wasn't looking down at the world from his ivory tower. He was looking at the woman beside him, and finally understanding what it meant to have everything that mattered. 6 months after that night in Leon's penthouse, Katerina stood in front of a room full of investors, educators, and tech journalists, trying not to throw up from nerves. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Welcome to the launch of EduBridge, educational software that makes quality tutoring accessible to every child, regardless of their family's income. The presentation screen behind her displayed colorful graphics of children learning through interactive games, but all Katerina could focus on was Leon's encouraging smile from the front row. He'd insisted on sitting in the audience rather than on stage, despite being her business partner and primary investor. Your waitress is going to change the world, he'd told her that morning over coffee. I'm just here to watch it happen. 3 months earlier, Katerina had been accepted to NYU's MBA program with a partial scholarship. 2 months ago, they had incorporated EduBridge as a legitimate company, with Leon providing the initial funding. Last month, they'd hired their first employee, a brilliant programmer named David who'd been laid off from a big tech company and was thrilled to work on something meaningful. And now, here she was, presenting their prototype to people who could make or break their dreams. The average cost of private tutoring in New York City is $85 per hour, Katerina continued, clicking to the next slide. For a family earning minimum wage, that represents nearly 3 days of work for a single hour of help with their child's education. She caught sight of Maria Santos in the third row, a single mother who worked double shifts at a hospital and whose 10-year-old son Tommy had been struggling with math. Tommy was now one of EduBridge's beta testers, and his grades had improved dramatically. EduBridge changes that equation, Katerina said, her confidence growing. Our adaptive learning platform provides personalized instruction for $15 per month. That's less than most families spend on streaming services. The room was silent, attentive. Katerina had learned from Leon that silence during a pitch was good. It meant people were thinking, processing, considering. But this isn't just about affordability, she continued. It's about effectiveness. Our AI-powered system adapts to each child's learning style, identifying weaknesses and building on strengths in real time. What would take months with traditional tutoring happens in weeks with EduBridge. She clicked to a video testimonial from Tommy's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who explained how dramatically his performance had improved since using the software. The question isn't whether technology can improve education, Katerina said, as the video ended. The question is whether we'll use it to widen the achievement gap or close it. EduBridge chooses to close it. Applause filled the room, and Katerina felt her shoulders relax for the first time in weeks. The Q&A session was intense but encouraging. Investors asked about scalability, market penetration, and revenue projections. Educators asked about curriculum alignment and teacher integration. Journalists asked about the competition and the company's origin story. "One more question," called out Rebecca Chen from TechCrunch. "Ms. Chen, you've gone from waitress to tech entrepreneur in less than a year. Some critics have suggested that your rapid rise is due to your relationship with Leon Crawford rather than your qualifications. How do you respond to that?" The room went dead silent. Katerina felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she'd prepared for this question. "I'd respond by saying those critics haven't done their homework," she said calmly. "Yes, Leon Crawford is my business partner, and yes, we're in a relationship. But EduBridge exists because of market research, educational expertise, and 18-hour workdays, not because of who I'm dating." She clicked to a new slide showing the company's organizational structure. "Leon's investment represents 30% equity in EduBridge. I maintain controlling interest as founder and CEO. Our board includes Dr. Sarah Martinez, former head of curriculum development at the Department of Education, and James Wu, who built 3 successful edtech companies. Leon's expertise in business strategy is invaluable, but this company succeeds or fails based on the strength of our product and our team." "And if your relationship with Mr. Crawford were to end?" Rebecca pressed. Leon started to stand, his expression darkening, but Katerina caught his eye and shook her head slightly. "Then EduBridge would continue operating exactly as it does now," Katerina replied without hesitation. "Because while our personal relationship brought us together, our professional partnership is based on mutual respect and shared vision. Both of us are too committed to this mission to let personal matters interfere with helping children learn." "Mr. Crawford," Rebecca turned to Leon, "do you agree with that assessment?" Leon stood slowly, and Katerina held her breath. "Ms. Chen, I've been in business for 15 years, Leon said, his voice carrying the authority that had built an empire. "I've seen partnerships based on friendship fail, partnerships based on profit fail, and partnerships based on convenience fail spectacularly." He paused, looking directly at Katerina. "But I've never seen a partnership based on genuine belief in a mission fail when both partners are willing to put the work in. Katerina doesn't need me to succeed. She needs me to keep up." The room erupted in appreciative laughter, and Katerina felt her heart swell with pride and love. After the presentation, as investors and journalists mingled over coffee and pastries, Leon approached Katerina near the windows overlooking the Hudson River. "That was incredible," he said, pulling her into a quick hug. "You were incredible. Even when I told the room that our company would survive if you dumped me?" Katerina grinned. "Especially then. Though for the record, I have no intention of dumping you. Ever." "Ever is a long time, Crawford." "Not long enough, Chen." They were interrupted by Dr. Martinez, who approached with a tablet in hand. "Katerina, Leon, I've been running numbers during the presentation," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Based on the response here and the demo performance data, I think we could be looking at 50,000 users within the first year." 50,000? Katerina's eyes widened. "Sarah, are you sure?" "Conservative estimate. If we nail the marketing rollout and the user experience stays this strong." Dr. Martinez shrugged. "Sky's the limit." As Dr. Martinez walked away to network with potential partners, Katerina turned to Leon. "This is really happening, isn't it?" "What? You mean besides the fact that you just convinced a room full of skeptics to believe in your vision?" "Yeah, I'd say it's happening. I keep waiting for someone to figure out that I have no idea what I'm doing." "Katerina." Leon turned her to face him fully. "Do you know what I was doing 6 months ago? Running Crawford Tech? Hiding behind Crawford Tech. Making decisions based on what I thought I should want instead of what I actually believed in." Leon brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You didn't just save me from a bad merger. You saved me from a bad life. Leon, I'm serious. 6 months ago, I was the guy who ate protein powder for breakfast and called it nutrition. Now I'm the guy who makes pancakes on Sunday mornings and argues with his girlfriend about whether chocolate chips count as a food group." Katerina laughed. "They absolutely count as a food group. See? You've already made me a better person." They were interrupted by the arrival of Marcus Webb, Leon's former board member, who approached with 2 other men in expensive suits. "Leon," Marcus said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Congratulations on the presentation. Very impressive." "Marcus?" Leon's tone was carefully neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here. Well, when I heard about your new venture, I had to come see what you've been up to." Marcus's gaze flicked to Katerina. "Ms. Chen, I'm Marcus Webb. I used to work with Leon at Crawford Tech." "Before you voted to remove him as CEO?" Katerina said pleasantly, making no effort to shake his offered hand. Marcus's smile faltered. "That was just business." "So is this," Katerina replied. "And business is good." "I'm sure it is, though I have to wonder about the sustainability of a model that relies so heavily on—" Marcus paused meaningfully. "Personal relationships." The temperature around them seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Marcus," Leon said quietly, "I'm going to give you one chance to clarify that statement before I decide whether to have security escort you out. I'm simply observing that mixing business with pleasure can be complicated." "You're right," Katerina said before Leon could respond. "It can be complicated. For example, it's complicated when your business partner becomes the person you trust most in the world. It's complicated when you have to balance being supportive with being honest about weaknesses in the business plan." She stepped closer to Marcus, her voice remaining perfectly pleasant. "It's also complicated when people assume that a woman's success must be due to her romantic relationships rather than her competence. But you know what's not complicated, Mr. Webb." "What's that?" "Recognizing that some people build things up while others tear them down. And choosing which kind of person you want to be." Marcus stared at her for a moment, then at Leon, then back at her. "Well," he said finally, "I suppose time will tell which approach proves more successful." "It certainly will," Katerina agreed. "Enjoy the party, Mr. Webb." As Marcus and his companions moved away, Leon looked at Katerina with something approaching awe. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." "Too late. You've already seen me hangry. This was nothing." Leon laughed, pulling her closer. "Have I mentioned today that I'm crazy about you?" "Only twice, but I don't mind hearing it again." "I'm crazy about you, Katerina Chen. Your brilliance, your passion, your ability to destroy condescending board members with killer politeness." "Leon." "Yeah? I'm crazy about you too." As the party continued around them, Leon and Katerina stood together by the windows, watching the sun set over the city they were determined to change. One child, one family, one dream at a time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new critics, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight, They had each other. They had their vision. And they had proof that sometimes the best partnerships begin with someone brave enough to say, "If I were you, I wouldn't sign that contract." 1 year later, Leon stood in the same corner booth at Sunrise Cafe where everything had begun, nervously adjusting his tie for the 10th time in 5 minutes. The small velvet box in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You're going to wear a hole in that tie if you keep fidgeting," Carlos observed from behind the counter, where he was helping Katerina with the morning rush. The food truck vendor had become the cafe's head cook 6 months ago when Katerina decided to expand the menu. "I'm not fidgeting," Leon protested, immediately proving himself wrong by checking his watch again. "Uh-huh." Dr. Martinez looked up from her laptop, where she was reviewing EduBridge's latest user analytics. As the company's chief academic officer, she spent most mornings at the cafe claiming the coffee improved her data analysis skills. "Leon, you've been vibrating with nervous energy since you walked in. Just ask her already." "Ask me what?" Katerina appeared at the table with Leon's usual coffee and a plate of the banana pancakes that had become his weekend tradition. "Nothing," Leon said quickly, shooting warning looks at both Carlos and Dr. Martinez. Katerina raised an eyebrow but didn't press. After a year together, she'd learned to recognize Leon's various types of anxiety. This seemed like the harmless variety rather than the board meeting from hell variety. "So," she said, sliding into the booth across from him, "ready for today's interview?" Leon nodded, grateful for the change of subject. "Bloomberg Business wants to do a feature on the couple revolutionizing education tech. Apparently we're becoming the poster children for successful business partnerships." "No pressure there," Katerina laughed. "Though I have to admit it's pretty surreal. A year ago, I was worried about making rent. Now we're on magazine covers." "Any regrets?" Leon asked, and something in his tone made Katerina look at him more carefully. "About what?" "About giving up your quiet life for all this craziness. The media attention, the investor meetings, the pressure." Katerina reached across the table and took his hand. "Leon Crawford, are you having an existential crisis in a pancake booth?" "Maybe a little one." "Well, stop it. Because if you're asking whether I regret building something meaningful with someone I love, the answer is absolutely not." Katerina squeezed his fingers. "Though I do regret letting you talk me into adding chocolate chips to the company health plan. Hey, that was a solid negotiation. Our employee satisfaction scores are through the roof. Because you bribe everyone with sugar. It's called strategic workplace enhancement," Leon said with mock seriousness. "I learned it in business school." "You never went to business school." "I went to the Leon Crawford School of Learning Everything the Hard Way. Very exclusive program." Katerina laughed, and Leon felt some of his nervousness ease. This was why he'd fallen in love with her. Not just her brilliance or her beauty, but the way she could make him feel completely himself, even when he was terrified. The cafe door chimed, and Jennifer, Leon's assistant, entered looking slightly harried. "Leon, the Bloomberg crew is setting up in the conference room. They want to start with individual interviews in 30 minutes. She paused, noticing his expression. "Are you okay? You look a little pale." "He's fine," Katerina said, standing up. "Just pre-interview jitters, I'll go get changed." As Katerina headed toward the back office they'd converted into a secondary workspace, Jennifer sat down across from Leon. "Okay, what's really going on? And don't say nothing, because I've been your assistant for 4 years. I know your nothing face, and this isn't it." Leon pulled the velvet box from his pocket and set it on the table. Jennifer's eyes widened. "Leon Michael Crawford, is that what I think it is?" "Depends. What do you think it is? An engagement ring for the woman who's been the best thing that ever happened to you? Then yes, that's what it is." Jennifer squealed, then immediately covered her mouth and looked around to make sure no one had noticed. "When are you going to ask her?" she whispered. "I was thinking after the interview, but now I'm wondering if I should wait. What if she says no? What if she thinks it's too fast? What if—" "Leon." Jennifer's voice was firm. "Breathe. Katerina is crazy about you. Anyone with eyes can see that. But what if? No what ifs. You've spent your entire life calculating risk and reward. Sometimes you just have to trust that good things can happen. Leon stared at the ring box, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. A year ago, he'd been a man who trusted spreadsheets more than instincts, who valued profit over people, who ate protein powder for breakfast and called it living. Now he was a man who made pancakes on Sunday mornings, who'd rather spend an evening at home with Katerina than at any business dinner, who'd discovered that the best investments weren't always financial. "You're right," he said finally. "It's time to stop overthinking and start trusting." The Bloomberg interview went better than expected. Leon and Katerina talked about EduBridge's growth. They now served over 100,000 students across 12 states, and their plans for international expansion. They discussed the challenges of mixing business with romance, the importance of maintaining separate spheres of expertise, and their shared vision for making education accessible to everyone. "One final question," said Amanda Rivers, the Bloomberg reporter. "Where do you see yourselves in 5 years, both personally and professionally?" Katerina and Leon exchanged a look. "Professionally," Katerina said, "we want EduBridge to be the standard for affordable, high-quality educational technology worldwide. We're already working on programs for adult learners and specialized courses for children with learning differences." "And personally?" Amanda prompted. "Personally," Leon said, his heart starting to race again, "I hope we'll still be partners in every sense of the word." The interview wrapped up, and the Bloomberg crew began packing their equipment. Leon watched Katerina chat with Amanda about potential follow-up stories, and realized he couldn't wait another minute. "Katerina," he called out, "could I talk to you for a second?" She looked surprised, but followed him back to their corner booth, now empty in the late afternoon lull. "Leon, what's wrong? You've been acting strange all day." "Nothing's wrong, everything's right, that's the problem." "I don't understand." Leon took a deep breath, reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring box. Katerina's hand flew to her mouth. "A year ago," Leon began, his voice shaking slightly, "I was sitting in this exact spot, about to make the biggest mistake of my professional life. And you, a woman I'd known for exactly 10 minutes, saved me from myself." Tears were already forming in Katerina's eyes. "You didn't just save my company, Katerina. You saved me. You showed me what it meant to trust my instincts, to value people over profit, to build something meaningful instead of just successful." Leon slid out of the booth and dropped to one knee, opening the ring box to reveal a simple, elegant solitaire. "You taught me that the best partnerships aren't just about combining resources, they're about combining dreams. And I want to combine my dreams with yours for the rest of our lives." The cafe had gone completely silent. Carlos was peeking out from the kitchen, Dr. Martinez had stopped typing, and even the Bloomberg crew had paused their packing to watch. "Katerina Chen," Leon said, his voice stronger now, "will you marry me?" Katerina stared at him, at the ring, at the man who'd gone from arrogant millionaire to the love of her life in the span of 12 months. "Leon," she said finally, "that depends." Leon's heart stopped. "On what?" "On whether you're asking me as my business partner or as the man who makes terrible pancakes but tries anyway." "Both," Leon said without hesitation. "I'm asking as the man who wants to wake up next to you every morning, who wants to build a family with you, who wants to grow old arguing about chocolate chip placement in our employee handbook. And I'm asking as your business partner who believes we can change the world together, one student at a time." Katerina slid out of the booth and knelt down to face him at eye level. "Then yes, Leon Crawford. Yes to all of it." The cafe erupted in cheers and applause. Carlos started crying and burned the eggs he was cooking. Dr. Martinez abandoned all professional dignity and whooped loudly. The Bloomberg crew immediately started filming again. Leon slipped the ring onto Katerina's finger with shaking hands, then kissed her as the people who'd become their extended family celebrated around them. "You know," Katerina whispered against his lips, "this is definitely going to complicate our business partnership." "Worth it," Leon whispered back. "Besides, I hear the best contracts are the ones that last forever. Is that your professional opinion, Mr. Crawford?" That's my personal guarantee, Ms. Chen, soon to be Mrs. Crawford. Actually, Katerina grinned. I was thinking Crawford Chen, or Chen Crawford. We'll negotiate the terms later. See? This is why I love you. Always thinking about the details. Someone has to. You're too busy being romantic. I have a reputation to maintain. As they stood up, still holding each other close, Leon looked around the cafe that had become the center of their world. The place where he'd learned to trust himself, where Katerina had learned to dream bigger, where they'd both discovered that the best things in life couldn't be calculated on a spreadsheet. So, Katerina said, admiring her ring in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, what's our next project, partner? Planning a wedding? Before that, what's our next business venture? Leon laughed, realizing that even in the middle of the most romantic moment of his life, Katerina was already thinking about their next opportunity to change the world. It was just one more reason why he couldn't wait to spend the rest of his life with her. Whatever it is, Leon said, I know it's going to be incredible. How can you be so sure? Because we're partners, and partners don't let each other fail. Katerina kissed him again, tasting coffee and promises and the sweet possibility of forever. Outside, the city hummed with the energy of 8 million people pursuing their dreams. But inside Sunrise Cafe, two people who'd found their perfect match were already living theirs. Some contracts, Leon thought as he held his fiancée close, were definitely worth signing. The end.